I'm going to show you 20 Christmas DIYs, so I'm going to get right to it. This is going to be a very simple and easy project and also fun to make. So I'm going to start by hot gluing the Christmas ornaments side by side as I'm doing right there. So I'll be forming a row of 6 Christmas ornaments. And this is going to serve as my baseline to create a Christmas tree. So once I'm done creating that first row, I'll move on to the second one. And then once I'm done with the second row, I'll continue with the third row until finally I will create the V shape that I need. And once I'm done, this is how my Christmas tree looks like. Easy peasy. I was gonna leave it as is, but then I decided to add this greenery to it, and I just used a few branches. And I just hot glued them to the front of my Christmas tree as you see me do there. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Should I left it alone? Yes or no? And this is how it's looking so far with the greenery. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is add some twine cord to the top. That way it could be used as a hanger. I'm also going to be using this Dollar Tree pick, but because it's too bulky, I'm going to have to take it apart. Next, I started to hot glue those items to the top of my Christmas tree. For this next DIY, I'm going to be using this round floral foam wreath and also some red and white berries from Dollar Tree. Basically, all I'm going to do is just remove these little berries from their stem and hot glue them onto my foam. Now I'll be alternating the white and the red until I cover the entire wreath. And here I just want to show you up close how it's coming along. Now you do have some gaps, and I will be adding some more of the berries as I'm pointing out in between where there's big old gaps. And this is how it turned out so far. I'll also be adding this house candle holder, and this I purchased at Dollar Tree. Now you can put a tea light or an LED light, but I'm going to be using an LED light because I don't want it to be a fire hazard of any kind. So by using some twine, I created a hanger for my house. And all I'm going to do is add some hot glue to the roof of the house and then add the hanger onto it. Next, I'm going to hot glue it now to the back side of my wreath. I'm going to be using 2 of these Dollar Tree Christmas trees and also these new ornaments that I got from Dollar Tree. Now you have this solid white, which is perfect to put anything that you want on there, and I will be putting a Merry Christmas wording on it. And I'll also be using these small berries. So the first thing I'm going to do is just, of course, take out these Christmas trees from the boxes, and I'm also going to remove the little stands that it has and basically just work with the tree itself. So I'm going to start by joining the 2 tree trunks together as you see me do right there. I'll be using 3 zip ties to tie them together. Next, I'm going to start to fan out the branches. And to fill in the gaps, I'll be using some of these garland ties. And this is how my swag is looking so far. Next, I'm going to add these berries, and I'm simply going to tie them onto the branches throughout my swag. Next, I'll be creating a bow for the center of my swag. So I'm going to start by first with the wider ribbon on the bottom and then putting the thinner one on top as you see me do there, and then I'm gonna fold it about 5 to 6 times. And then I'm going to cut a slit on each side of the ribbon. And now to hold my ribbon in place, I'm going to use some wire and tie it in the center and wrap it around where my slits are at. And now I'm just going to fluff out my bow. Now that my bow is ready, I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the center of my swag. Next, I'm going to add some ribbon on each side of the swag. I went ahead and I added this Merry Christmas wording to this white ornament, and now I'm just going to hang it in the center of my swag, and I'll also add the other 2 red and white ornaments on each side. For this DIY, I'm going to be using this red pool noodle, and keep in mind all these materials are from Dollar Tree. The first thing that I'm going to do is remove the sticker, and then I'm going to start cutting 7 pieces of this pool noodle, and I'll be using a knife for that. And I'm just going to randomly cut different sizes, so it doesn't matter the size, it just matters that you have 7 pieces. Next, I'm going to be using these stencils because I'm going to spell out the word believe. And I'll also be using this Waverly chalk paint in the color white. And I'll also be using this beauty sponge. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first letter, and on the first tube that I cut, I'm going to paint on the letter B, and then I'll move on to the next tube and then put the letter E, and then so forth until I spell out the word believe. Okay, so now that I've stenciled in all my letters, what I'm going to do next is fill in the little gaps that those stencils have. As you can see right there, I'm filling in that little space. So I'm going to do that to the rest of the stencil letters, and then I'll be right back. The next thing that I'm going to do is hot glue all the tubes together, and I'm starting now with the B and the E, and I'm just going to put some hot glue along the side of the tube and then just join them together. Next, I'm going to join the letter L next to the E, and I'll just continue hot gluing the remainder of the letters. Dollar Tree right now has these little miniature trees, so I'm going to be using 4 of these packs, and they come in a pack of 2. Next, what I'm going to do is hot glue these little miniature trees to the top of my tube. I'm just going to add a dab of hot glue underneath the Christmas tree and then just place it on top, and I'll be putting all those trees along the top of the tubes. From those 4 packs, I had 1 little Christmas tree left over, but I have to say this was the easiest DIY that I think that I've ever done. For this next DIY, I'll be using 2 of these dish drying mats, and these are from the Christmas collection from Dollar Tree. I absolutely love this buffalo check pattern. I'm also going to be using the snowflake ornament. What I'm going to do to this snowflake is remove the bling wrap that it has on the front. I'm just going to lift it off as you see me do right there. Okay, so now that I've removed the bling wrap, as you can see now it's nice and flat, and what I'm gonna use the snowflake is to stamp it on my mat. Okay, so I've added some white Waverly chalk paint to a pan, and now I'm dipping my snowflake in the pan, as you can see, and I'm just making sure that the snowflake is completely covered with the white paint. Okay, so now I'm ready to stamp the snowflake onto my mat, and I'm just going to be doing this to this one mat. And now you have a pretty snowflake print on this mat, and it looks so pretty, I think. So I'm going to let this paint dry for just a few hours, and then I'll come back to finish it off. I'm going to be using this cotton mop head to make some tassels for my pillow. Okay, so this is how I'm going to make my tassel. I'm going to get 6 strings from the mop, and I'm also going to use 2 pieces of yarn. So I'm going to lay 1 piece of yarn down, and then place the bundle of strings down the center. And then I'm going to grab both ends of the yarn and then make a tight knot in the center. And then I'm going to place the last piece of yarn, and then I'm going to place the bundle of strings right in the center, and then I'm going to tie another knot nice and tight. And now I'm just going to cut the strings and shorten them just a little bit. And then lastly, I'm just going to cut the strings and shorten them. And this is how all 4 tassels turned out. Okay, so now I'm ready to create my pillow. So I went ahead and I placed both of the bottom mats facing each other, as I'm showing you right there. So I'm going to start hot gluing up at the corner, but what I did first is add one of the tassels there on the corner. I placed some hot glue, and then I went ahead and I placed the other mat on top, and that way it's sandwiched between the 2 mats. And I'm just going to keep going down, adding hot glue in sections at a time until I get to the corners, and then I'll add a tassel. I am going to leave an opening down at the bottom so that I can put some cotton through there. I left an opening about 3.5 inches. I'll be using this cotton from an old pillow, and now I'm going to start stuffing my pillow. And now I'm going to be closing up the opening by just adding some hot glue. And this is how it turned out. I'm going to be using another dish drying mat with the same buffalo check pattern. So what I'm going to do is cut 3 circles. I've already cut one of them right there. So I'm going to start by turning it over to the back side, and then I'm going to use this candle lid that is about the size of a coaster, and I'll be using also this gold permanent marker. I'll be using it to trace around the lid. The reason I'm using this gold color is because I just needed something that would stand out against the black. Now this is a sample. This is one that I created earlier. And now I'm just going to cut out my 3 circles. Okay, so now that I have my 3 circles, what I'm going to do is cover the edges with the mop strings that I used earlier for the pillow tassels. So I'm just going to add some hot glue there on the edge, and then I'll add the string. And I'll just keep going around until I cover the edge completely, and I'll be doing that to the rest of the circles. I'll be using one of these snowflake ornaments to stamp my coasters just like I did my pillow. I'm going to be using my sanding block to remove some of the glitter on my snowflake. I'll also be using this white Waverly chalk paint. Okay, so I'm basically going to do the same thing as I did with the larger snowflake. I'm going to dip the snowflake into the paint, and I'm going to make sure it's all covered, and then I'm going to stamp it onto my coaster. Now I did have to do it several times because the snowflake wasn't coming out as outlined as I wanted it to. So this just depends up to you if you decide to do this project, if you want your snowflake to be just lightly printed on there or heavily. It just really depends on you. So in this one, I'm going to be using this holiday cookie cutters, and these were only $1, and I found these at Dollar General. So what I'm going to do is create some ornaments using these cookie cutters. For the first cookie cutter, I'm going to be using this ribbon, and this is a very pretty ribbon. It's kind of thick, so it's going to work perfect for a backing for my Christmas tree ornament, and I'm going to be using this gingerbread boy. So as you can see, I've placed it over my ribbon, and what I'm going to do now is just hot glue the back side of the cookie cutter and then place it over my ribbon. And then I'm just going to cut around the cookie cutter. There was some areas where the hot glue didn't adhere to the ribbon, so I'm just going back and adding some more hot glue. In some areas, I did use a box cutter. Using that same ribbon, I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm going to just create a hanger for my ornament. And this first ornament is complete. For this next ornament, I'm going to be using this scrap paper that I've had already for a while, and I'm going to be using now the Christmas tree, and I'm going to do the same steps as I did with the gingerbread by adding some hot glue to the back side of the Christmas tree and then placing it over my paper and then cutting around the paper. For this ornament, I'm going to be using some of these vase fillers to put around my tree, and I'm going to be using some white and silver of the little vase fillers. For this ornament, I'm going to be using this ribbon for a hanger. And then lastly, I added one little ball there to the top of my Christmas tree. Okay, so now I'm going to start on my lantern, and I'll be using these items here. This is what I'll be using for the handle, and I got this from this Halloween bucket. And all I did was cut off the ends right there using my wire cutters. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is add some super glue around the rim of the glass jar, and then I'm going to add some hot glue, and then I'm going to place it over the candle holder. Since I'm going to be using this as a handle for my lantern, what I'm doing there is kind of flattening the ends because it's going to go underneath the candle holder, and I need it to sit just right. Next, I'm going to paint the handle with some white chalk paint. And then I'm also going to paint the base of the lantern with the white chalk paint as well. And now I'm going to let the paint dry for a few hours. Okay, so now I'm ready to add the handle onto the base of the lantern, and I'm going to be adding some super glue and hot glue to both ends of the handle. And I'm going to place it underneath the candle holder first, and then the top. And then I added some weight up at the top. I do have to tell you that I did struggle with it a bit. It didn't want to stick, so I did leave the weight on all night long, and then it was good to go. And this is how it turned out, and I do want to show you the underside. As you can see, it glued a little bit offset, so I did have a little problem with that, but it does look okay. It doesn't look that crooked. Okay, so now I'm ready to add the glass vase. So what I'm going to do is add some super glue in the center and then some hot glue around the bottom rim, and then I'm just going to place it on the base. And now I'm going to decorate it with some greenery and some berries. And then lastly, I'm going to drop in the LED candle inside the vase. And this is how it turned out. the 10th DIY, I'll be using these clear bowls, and this one right here has a stand already. I found this one in the wedding section at Dollar Tree, but I only found one of them. And also these clear bowls, and these come in a pack of 2. 2 mini bowls, and this one comes in a pack of 6. Some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. Some red ornaments, and these are in a pack of 16. Some miniature disco balls in the color red. Some small vase fillers. Some candles. A pack of pine cones. The first thing that I'm going to do is start removing all the labels off my bowls. I really love this bowl with a stand already, but like I mentioned earlier, my Dollar Tree only had one. So what I decided to do is make 2 other ones that look almost the same, but of course not quite. So I'll be using the mini bowls as a stand for the bigger bowl. I want the base of my candle stands to be white, so I'm going to start painting the small bowls, and then I'll paint the stand from the one that already has a stand attached to it already. This one here, I'm just going to be very careful not to paint the bottom of the bowl. I'm going to give these 2 coats of paint. And here I'm just pointing out to you that I didn't go all the way up with the paint. And this is how it looks now that the paint is dry. Okay, so now I'm ready to hot glue the smaller bowl onto the larger bowl, just like this. I'll be creating another candle stand, so I'll have a total of 3. Okay, so now I'm going to add the candles to my candle stands. And then I'm going to add some pine cones. And then the mini Christmas ornaments. And then some vase fillers. I'll be adding the same items to the other 2 candle holders. I think these turned out so beautiful, and they were so inexpensive to make, and this just adds this Christmassy touch to any table. I'm going to be using these wood letters, and these come from a board that I have that you just insert the letters to spell out any sayings that you might like. Now this, I believe I purchased at Target last year. So I'm going to be using these letters to spell out joy, and then also feliz, which is the translation in Spanish for joy. So I'm going to be using this ribbon here, and this came from Dollar Tree, and all I'm going to do is place those words on this ribbon. I'm just going to hot glue them straight onto the ribbon. So I'm going to start off with the word joy first. Now that I've placed my blocks where I want them to be, I'm just going to cut off the excess ribbon. And all I'm going to do is just add some hot glue directly on the ribbon and then place my block letters. And just to reinforce the block letters, I'm going to add some hot glue on the back side, only because this ribbon has mesh down the center. Next, I'm just going to fold the top of the ribbon down. And once again, I'll be using some more vase fillers. So what I'm going to do is just add some of those little balls to the top of my ornament. I'll be adding 3 of them. Next, I'll be adding some of this ribbon, and it has some elastic to it. And I'm just going to cut a small piece and then just hot glue it to the top of the first ball. And I went ahead and I trimmed off some more of that ribbon down on the bottom. And here is the Feliz ornament, and I followed the same steps as I did with the Joy ornament. For the 12th DIY, I'll be using 2 Christmas trees from Dollar Tree. And just for your FYI, I have already put together 2 other trees. For the tree base, I'm going to be using 2 floral foams, and it's these round ones here. And if you want to give your tree just more height, you can use this thicker block foam. Some jute cord, some Dollar Tree garland. I'll also be using some burlap. And to decorate my Christmas trees, I'll be using these different mini Christmas ornaments from Walmart. And also from Walmart, some of these mini pine cones. And also some Dollar Tree 16-piece Christmas ornaments. Some buffalo check ribbon. And also some white spray paint. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is remove the base off these Christmas trees, and I'm going to be doing that to both of them. What I'm going to be doing is joining these trees together like this. But before that I do that, I am going to pull the branches to one side so the metal stem will be very visible. And I'll be doing that to the other tree as well. Okay, so now that the metal is very visible and the branches are pulled away from it, now I can join them together like so. I'm going to be using some of this Dollar Tree garland to do that. I'm just going to cut a few pieces. Okay, so I'm going to start by placing both trees side by side, and I'm going to bring them as close together as I possibly can. And then I'm going to move the branches away from the center of the bar. That way I can see where I'm going to tie the garland around both trees. And that's how I'm going to keep the trees together. So I'm going to start in the center section, and then I'm just going to move down to the lower part and then up at the top. You can really go any order that you want. I just did it that way. And here I'm just pointing out where I added the garland. Now if you wanted to, you could add another tree, but I was okay with just these two. For the base, I'm going to be using these two floral foams, and I'm just going to hot glue the smaller foam onto the larger one. Next, I'm going to add some hot glue all around the center bar of both of the trees, and I am going to put a generous amount of hot glue. Next, I'm going to insert the bar in the center of my foam board, and I'm just going to press down on it until the glue hardens. Okay, so now I'm going to start to fluff out my branches. Now that the branches are fluffed out, I see there's another area where my bar is being exposed, so I'm going to add another piece of garland around that area. So what I like to do with these trees is just turn the branches upward as I'm showing you right there, and I'm going to do that to each and every branch. And this is how the tree looks now that I've turned the branches up, and this is how it looked before. I think by just turning those branches up made a big difference. You could leave this tree like this if you wanted, but I want mine to have some white snow, so I'm going to go and spray paint it. I'm going to start spray painting the bottom side, and then I'll go ahead and place my tree upward and then continue spraying it. And this is how it turned out, and now I'm going to let the paint dry before I start to decorate it. The next thing that I'm going to do is cover the base with a piece of burlap. And then once I do that, I'm just going to bring up the burlap to the center of the trunk of the tree, and then I'm going to tie it with a piece of jute cord. Next, I'm going to add all the Christmas decorations and also place a bow up at the top. For the 13th DIY, I'll be using these two Dollar Tree tin vases, some jute cord, some Jot white glue, some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I'll also be using these Christmas trees from these window clings, and I got this at Dollar General. Some Dollar Tree berry branches, and these have a little bit of frost to them. The first thing that I'm going to do is start painting these vases, and I'll be using the white chalk paint for that. I'm only going to give them one coat of paint. Now I'm going to let this dry for a few hours. Next, I'm going to add some jute cord around the top part of the tin can, and I'm going to start at the back. I'm going to start by adding some hot glue, and then I'm just going to wrap it around a few times. The next thing that I'm going to do is add one of these Christmas tree window clings to the front of my vase. I'm going to add a little bit of this school glue in the front, and then I'm just going to brush it on with my brush, and then I'm going to put the window cling over it. I'm also going to brush the top side with just a little bit of glue that I have on my brush. I'll be making another one like this with just a different cling. This vase right here already has some foam in it because I'm repurposing this vase, so I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to start by adding all my berry branches inside my vase. For the 14th DIY, I'll be using these 3 Dollar Tree Christmas decor, some Christmas picks from Dollar Tree, some wrapping paper in the buffalo check print, and this is also from Dollar Tree, some stencils, some Jot white glue. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is remove this piece of tin metal that's on this Christmas decor, and I'm going to be doing that to all 3 of them. I'm going to start by lifting the corner with my metal ruler, and I'm going to be very careful as to not bend it too much because I will be using this piece of metal again. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is add this piece of wrapping paper to the back side of my Christmas decor, which now it'll be the front side. So I'm going to start by adding some of this white glue, and I'm just going to brush it on the ornament, and then once I have put enough of that glue, I'm going to go ahead and place the paper over it and just smooth it out with my hands very gently. I do have to tell you that because it's wrapping paper, it can tear very easily, and it also gets wrinkled really quick. You can use Mod Podge as an alternative. I didn't have any, and that's why I decided to use this white glue. Next, I'm going to brush on some more glue on the top side. I did add a little bit of water to the glue, which made it a little bit thinner and easier to spread. Okay, so now that the glue is dry on all 3 of my ornaments, it's time for me to start removing the excess paper. And I'm going to start by trimming it with my scissors and then smoothing off my edges with a sanding block. Next, I'm going to put back the metal using a little bit of hot glue. And now I'm going to start stenciling in the letters, and I'm going to start with a J and then move on to the next ornament with an O, and then the next one with a Y. The next thing that I'm going to do is just sponge in some white paint, and I'll be going all around the ornament. I want this to look as if it has some snow. The last thing that I'm going to do is decorate my ornaments by adding some greenery and some berries and also some pine cones. For the 15th DIY, I'll be using Dollar Tree Christmas box decor, and I'll be using 4 of them. And this Dollar Tree wrapping paper and a Christmas ornament for $1. I purchased this one at Dollar General, but Dollar Tree also has the same type of ornament. 1 pack of these miniature Christmas trees, and I purchased these at Dollar Tree. And also this miniature little plant from Dollar Tree. I'll also be using some Mod Podge and also some fairy lights from Dollar Tree, some acrylic paint in the color latte and also white. The first thing that I'm gonna do is remove those little metal hooks that these boxes come with. And then next I'll be removing the label. Okay, so what I'm gonna do with these 4 boxes is join them together like this. But before that I do that, I am gonna remove some of the sideboards because I'm not gonna need them. So I'm gonna start marking them off with a pen first before I remove them. And here I'm just showing you the ones I marked off that I'll be removing. The 2 top ones, the 2 center ones, and also these that go across, and also these down here at the bottom. Okay, so now I'm ready to start taking off the sideboards. Usually these boards come off really easy just by pulling on them, but these would not come off, so I did have to use my hammer just to make them come loose. Okay, so once I was done removing all the sideboards, I had all these left over, and I am going to put them aside because I will be using them. And this is how it looks now, and now I'm going to start hot gluing the pieces together. I'm going to start with the bottom 2 boxes first. And then for extra reinforcement, I'm going to add a sideboard where I join both of those boards together. The printed side will be the back side of the front of the house. And now that I've joined these 2 together, this is now the bottom half of the house. Next, I'm going to join the other 2 boxes, and this is going to be the top side of the house. And for this as well, I'm going to use some reinforcement by adding another piece of sideboard to the back side. Now that I have the bottom and the top section complete, now I'm going to join them together. Since these sections are a little bit bigger, what I did is I added a sideboard underneath before I start to hot glue them together. This will keep the 2 sections in balance before they get glued together. And this will also give them the extra reinforcement. Next, I turned it over to the back side and I filled in some areas where it needed some more hot glue. And so what I've done right here is I drew out the roof of the house and how it's going to look. So what I'm going to do now is make those same markings, but now on the back side, and I'm going to be using my ruler for that. As you can see, I've placed my ruler in an angle, and I'm going to be starting in the top center section and then just come down to the edge of the box. Next, I'm going to repeat the same steps but to the opposite side. And now as you can see the markings, I have now the rooftop. Next, I'm going to be using my handsaw to remove the pieces. One side down, and now to the next one. Okay, so this is how my house is looking so far. And what I'm doing next is trying to find the right size of boards that I can use to trim off the roof. These are the same boards that I took off from the boxes originally. I'm going to be painting the trimming of the house this color like my door. So what I'm going to do is mix a little bit of latte into my white paint. Because I don't have like an off-white color on hand, I'm going to have to mix one myself. Okay, so now that I've achieved the color that I wanted, I'm going to start painting the sideboards that are going to be used as trimming for my house. I also cut some smaller ones, and those are going to be used as steps for my doorway. I'm also going to paint the trimmings from the bottom section of the house. Once I'm done painting all the pieces that I'll be using, I'll set it aside and let them dry. I'll be using this wrapping paper to cover the front of the house, and so what I'm going to do now is just cut the piece out that I'll be using. Okay, so what I'm doing here is outlining the shape of my house onto the back side of the wrapping paper, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm going to be adding some Mod Podge only in the area where I'll be applying the wrapping paper onto my house. And now I'm ready to carefully lay the wrapping paper on top of the front of the house, and then I'm just going to smooth it out with my hands. I had to be very careful because the wrapping paper is so thin that it can tear really easily. This is the first time that I Mod Podge any wrapping paper, and so I noticed that there was some bubbles and I could not smooth them out. The next thing that I did is I cut out some of the excess paper. I didn't get very close because I will be removing it with my sanding block once the Mod Podge is dry. Next, I'm going to add some more Mod Podge to the top of the paper and then just smooth it out with my brush. Okay, so I'm done adding the Mod Podge, and now I'm going to let this sit out for a few hours until the glue dries. Okay, so now I'm ready to start trimming off the excess paper, and I'm going to be using my sanding block for that. This will give you a nice smooth clean cut. I'll be using my box cutters to cut the inside edge where the trimming is at. Next, I'm going to start to trim off my rooftop with the pieces of sideboards that I had cut and painted. Once I was done trimming my rooftop, I really didn't like how it looked, so what I ended up doing is cut a triangle shape with the same sideboard, and then I hot glued it to the tip of my rooftop. If you look closely on the edge where the trimming is at, there is some of that red peeking through. I did have to saw that off. And then with those extra sideboards that I had, I painted them, and then I created 2 small steps for my house. So what I'm going to be doing is gluing them down. The first board that I'll be gluing is about 2 inches long, and then the smaller one is about 1.5 inches. And now that I have my steps, I'm going to go ahead now and add my door ornament to the front of my house. Next, what I did is add another piece of sideboard to the back side of the house. This will help the house to stay upright. Next, what I'm going to do is add these miniature trees on each side of the door, but first I'm going to remove the little stand on the bottom, and then I'm going to cut off that piece of wire that the little trees have, and then I'm going to hot glue it to the bottom sideboard. And I'm also going to hot glue this small miniature plant to the side where the smaller tree is at. And then lastly, I added the fairy lights around the trimming of my house, and I did have to hot glue them. Before I show you the front side of the house, I do want you to take a look at the back side with all the reinforcement boards. And this is how the house looks now, lighted up. I do want to let you know that this was a bit of a challenge. It was harder than what I had expected, but I did have a lot of fun creating it. I'm going to use this Dollar Tree ornament. So the first thing that I'm going to do is remove the top, and then I'm going to remove that plastic holder by just cutting it off. I'll also be using this twine as a hanger for my ornament, and what I'm going to do is just create a loop and then cutting it and knotting both strings together. Next, I'm going to put that end down the hole, and then I'm going to add some hot glue to hold it in place. I'm going to be covering that ornament using these mini pine cones from Dollar Tree. So So I just want you to see up close that these cones have a little stem at the bottom, and so I'm going to go ahead and cut those little stems off because I need them to be flat on the bottom when I hot glue it onto my ornament. So I'm just going to continue with this process until I cover the entire ornament. And this is how it turned out so far. And I do want to show you up close that I did have to cut little tiny pine cones to fill in the spaces between the pine cones. I'm also going to be using some Mod Podge and also some glitter. And this glitter I purchased at Walmart. This is the iridescent glitter. This step is pretty basic. All I'm going to do is brush on some Mod Podge and then sprinkle some glitter all around my pine cone ornament. For this ornament, I'm going to be using this cardboard, and this came from another ornament that I had, and I had taken off the decorations that it had. I used what was in front of it. So I kept this, but what I'm going to do is just cut off that little piece of cardboard because I just want it to be just round and with no bumps anywhere. And I'll be covering that circle with some of this wrapping paper. So I'm going to start off by just adding small dots of hot glue around the circle and then placing my paper over it. And then cutting off the excess paper by just going around the circle. And then I went back in with some more hot glue, just making sure that I would seal the paper all around the circle. I'll be using some of these sticker words that say deck the halls. Now I purchased these at Dollar General. So once I cut them out, I went ahead and I put the words somewhere in the center of the circle. This is a great little hack if you don't have a Cricut or anything like that to create your own words. This works out fine. And once again, I'm going to be using vase fillers. So what I'm going to do is just add these little balls all around the circle and just frame it. Now this would look really nice with wood beads, but since I didn't have any, I opt with these little foam vase fillers. I mean, you still get the same look as you would with wood beads, except these have the gold color on them. So to me, it kind of doesn't matter. It's really your preference. So I'm going to be using some of this green glitter, and this is from Dollar Tree. I wanted to give this just a little sparkle. Don't ask me why I used green. I just thought that green might look pretty on here. So I'm going to just add a little bit of Mod Podge to the front of my ornament and then sprinkle the glitter. So here I'm just pointing out that I put too much glitter there and I didn't like how it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and add this little tiny brooch to it, and that'll cover that glitter error, if you will. Now for the hanger, I'm going to be using a piece of a garland tie that I cut. All I did was just shape it as a loop, and then I hot glued it to the back of my ornament. And then lastly, I'm going to be adding this gold ribbon bow that I had stored away. And I'm just going to hot glue it to the hanger up at the top. I'm going to be using 2 of these glass candle holders from Dollar Tree. And also from Dollar Tree, I'll be using 2 of these candles from Sure Scents in the scent Apple Cinnamon. And for some decoration, I'll be using 2 of these small red ornaments. I'll also be using some faux snow and also some baker's twine in the red and white. This project is going to be so super duper easy. So all I'm going to do is wrap some of this baker's twine around the top of the candle holder as you see me do there, and then I'll be tying a knot on the side. I went ahead and I left a string long enough because I'll be hanging my Christmas ornament on there, and all I'm gonna do is just thread the twine through the top of the ornament and then just tie it. I'll be doing the same thing to the second glass candle holder. And now I'm just gonna pour some of that faux snow and I'm just gonna fill it a third of the way. And lastly, I'm gonna take this red candle and I'm gonna slip it inside my candle holder as you see me do right there. And there you have it, a super easy home decor. I will be making another one because I do want these as a set. I'm going to be using these Dollar Tree Christmas large ornaments, and these are the ones that have the metal up at the top. I'll also be using these decals that I made on my Cricut, and I also will be using this beaded garland from Hobby Lobby, and I got this at half price, so it was about $4 and change. Now I know that making a beaded garland is very easy to make, but I was lazy and I just wanted to purchase one already made. I started off by first removing the top metal portion of my ornament using my small spatula. And I'll be doing the same thing to the other two. Next, I'll be using some of this Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and I'm going to paint the back side of my ornament. And I'll be doing the same thing to these other two. Now that the paint has dried, I'm going to go ahead and glue back the metal portion of the ornament using some hot glue. And now I'm going to go ahead and place my first decal, and then I'll move on to the other two and place the decals on them. And now they read, fa la la. Now I was going to leave my ornaments as is, but then I just decided to go ahead and add some of this greenery and berries to them. And basically all I did was just cut off those green leaves and then place one on each side, and then in the center add the berries. And I'll just repeat the same steps to the other two ornaments. And lastly, I'll be using some of this twine to tie my ornaments to my garland. For this next easy DIY, I'm going to be using 3 of these Dollar Tree white ceramic vases. Now when I saw these, I was just really stunned because they are so pretty. You really don't have to do much to them. So I'll be using these 3, and I'll also be using this greenery that I also found at Dollar Tree, and these I believe are new because I didn't see them last year. And I'll also be using these frosted berries, also from Dollar Tree, and some twine. I'll also be using these red and white pipe cleaners, and I purchased these at Hobby Lobby. So what I'm going to do with these pipe cleaners is create some letters, a J, an O, and a Y. So I'm just going to show you how I created them instead of me actually explaining, because I don't think I'll do a good job. So just go ahead and take a look at how I created the letters. And so here I start off by creating the letter J. It's pretty easy. The next letter is the Y. And I decided to make a bigger O because the one I originally made was too small. Okay, so now that I have all my letters, I'm going to go ahead and add some hot glue to the back side of the letters and then glue them onto my ceramic bases. And now you have these 3 vases that spell out joy. And the next thing that I'm going to do to the vases is wrap some twine around the top as you see me do there, and I'll be doing the same thing to the other 2. And now I'm just going to fill my vases with the greenery and also the red berries. If you made it this far, thank you so very much for sticking around. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you were able to gather a lot of ideas for your Christmas home decor. Well, that is it. I hope that you have a blessed day, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye and God bless.